Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell, and if it's not obvious from my voice, I am a little bit sick. I caught something from my child last week, and it's a good thing I pre-record all my videos because I haven't been able to record diddly shit in like a while. So to ease my voice back into it, I figured it could be fun to bring back an older series of mine that has been requested for a return and do a little bit of improvised world building. Thank you very much, Desert Monk. You are an absolute mensch, and I really appreciate that you like this series. Let's see if we can get a couple more people into it. So, improvised world building means that I am going to take a handful of random words. I'm going to have a timer, and I'm going to see what I can do with those words, coming up with a fictional thing inspired by those words within a time limit of 10 minutes. I'm going to have a timer on screen this time. My topic for this video, to help it make it a little bit more accessible for the Age of Empires people who mostly watch my channel right now, is I'm going to come up with a fantasy civilization. Like, specifically, a civilization that could exist on an Earth-like planet. So I'm going to see what I can do in 10 minutes with that prompt based on the following words. We're going to go with 5 random words, and they will be as follows. Remind, isle, acute, opinion, and valley. Ooh, that's quite interesting. I'm not entirely sure what those are going to do. It's always tricky to find connections between words like this, but we do have a few like isle and valley that are kind of coherent. 3, 2, 1, begin. And come back here, timer. Nice. All right, so civilization. What does a good civilization need? A good civilization, first of all, needs to know where they are located. Like the geography is massive for what defines a civilization. And since I'm trying to design something that could like hypothetically be found in a game like Age of Empires 2, I need it to be like large scale. So it's not going to be like a single settlement within a valley, for example. But since we have valley is a great starting point. You have fertile land. Jesus Christ, my mic's in the way. So you have fertile farmland. That's a huge part of what valleys often provide. Not very defensible. And it's probably, for a civ, it has to be like a big river. Like, if we're talking about this being a civilization and I'm going with valley being kind of their heartland, then it needs to be on a really big river. So let's assume that this is a river-oriented civ that also comes with a couple other things like trade. Trade is huge along rivers. We already talked about farming. You can have like a very big population if you're along a river, just because in those older days, not only do you have the trade and you have the food, but you can also have waste removal, which is very, very important for a large population. Let's pause there because I've already gone through a minute and a half. Remind isle. Oh my god, acute opinion. These are so tricky. So isle kind of fits in with valley. It's a narrow slice. What's a way of doing that? Well, so for isle, we can go with it could be like a very narrow slice of something. What if this wasn't just a valley? What if it was a rift valley? So, like massive cliffs on either side. Can only grow along the river. Yeah, so that way you're really isolated. You are in this isle of fertility, and let's say like hostile wasteland everywhere outside Rift Valley for practical expansion purposes. Obviously, we'll need to make sure they have some other people that they deal with. So this is very interesting because if they're nestled inside of this massive Rift Valley, that means that not only are they like naturally protected more so than you would be in a normal valley, but it also allows them to be kind of a microcosm within this specific area, and the outside world beyond can be scary and different and unusual. So it makes them very isolated in how they contend with the world around them. Kind of like something like Japan might have been, but instead of being on an island, they're in an island of the earth, so to speak. Okay, remind. Oh my god, that's hard. Remind and opinion are both kind of cerebral concepts. Remind and opinion. Well, opinion, that tells me that, especially if we have acute, I'm going to say that because of opinion and acute, they have like a very bureaucratic society, kind of like how China was able to provide such a massive surplus of food that they could like support a bureaucrat class. Food production supports big administrative class or caste even. And we can also say therefore that it's a very tiered society, but also socially mobile. Because if we're looking to China, you could say that it reminds me of China. Because if we're talking medieval China, you could test into these administrative castes. Test into upper castes, or to government castes. I would say also very robust legal system. And if we have both of those things, they would probably have a long tradition of written language, including paper, ink. What if we go a step further? And like, I'm trying to go for a medieval society, right? What if we go a step further and say that they've gone so hard into this that they've invented block printing, / early printing press really early compared to neighbors and average, the average way that a civilization would develop. So that what we're looking at right now is a civilization that is kind of grown fat off of the luxury, or not luxury, but the abundance and the, what am I looking for here? They've grown fat off of the abundance and the protection / isolation of their home realm. They don't need to worry about being invaded or colonized nearly as much. And that's because they all incoming threats forced into the natural choke points of the valley. So an enemy can only come at them from one of two directions. All of the Rift Valley is so huge and so deep and so nasty everywhere outside that enemies can't come in through the surrounding wastelands. They have to come in along the river itself. So they have to come in along the river itself. Yeah, that's cool. So that would mean that they do still need to have a military. So they do still have a military. But it would have to be, it's a very static one. Big focus on fortifications and stationary siege engines. Not like besieging siege engines, but defensive siege engines, of course. Let me see, what else? What else am I missing here? Stationary siege engines. Archery would be a focus, but also they would probably have, I'm going to bring in Remind, because I think now that I've talked more about these guys, they feel very like medieval Chinese to me, you know? And so the way I'm using Remind is in the way that they remind me of China. And one of the things that China was known for in the medieval period is massive military innovation. So we can say they have early gunpowder. Like grenades, like Huacha style, rocket carts. Here's an idea. Explosives can be used to cause landslides in the walls of the Rift Valley to collapse on top of incoming enemy armies. And speaking of incoming enemy armies, who are they worried about? Concerns. Well, it would be boring if they had to deal with the same enemies from both directions. And since they only have two directions to work with, let's keep this simple. So let's say they have to worry about north and south. North and south. So let's say north, if I'm thinking China, then, well, let's not get too focused in on China here. Acute. Acute means like hyper-focused. I like how acute kind of fits in with like the way that the choke points factor into the protection of their society. They can focus all the defenses there. I think it makes sense to me that north would be where the barbarians come from, you know. Yeah, so I think if north is where the barbarians come from, there can be like various tribes trying to come in to pillage and take resource what they can. Let's say that those barbarian tribes up north are like often very deprived of resources themselves, so have to seek elsewhere. Driven to pillage. Kind of like the sea peoples, I guess. South. I want to get a little more interesting here. Let's say that in the south, that narrow Rift Valley eventually opens up. Rift Valley opens up into like a broader community of kingdoms / nations, like kind of like France / Germany in the early Middle Ages, where there were so many different peoples, and then like various seats of power started to develop. So sometimes they would be like trading partners, and even maybe a little bit of immigration, but also oftentimes they would try to strike war with these valley people so that they can get resources. Okay, and we need a name. Okay, remind, Isle. Wow, where am I going to go with this? Okay, Isle is such a cool word. It has so many vowels. Let's try to kind of corrupt that. Clean. Nice. And we are done. So let's review what we have. We have the Iklena nation. They live in a gigantic rift valley with hideous wasteland around every side, and the walls of the Rift Valley are colossal. But within this Rift Valley, there's a single massive river, and along that river, there's a lot of incredibly fertile and resource-rich land and area. And within this area, because they only have to protect 2 different choke points from incoming invaders from north and south, they have been able to develop an incredibly safe, peaceful, productive, and very resource-abundant society, allowing them to support a very complex government hierarchy. It's very Egyptian too, now that I think about it. Egyptian plus Chinese. So they've supported this sophisticated caste system, and they have been able to develop an incredibly defensive and technologically advanced military that makes use of the Rift Valley walls to create fortifications and further choke points, and to detonate incoming armies with rock slides and traps. And to the north, they're mostly dealing with roving barbarian tribes who are sometimes driven out of desperation. I could see that being like occasional massive floods of incoming threats. Versus the south is more where they trade and contend with. It would be a lot of different nations to the south that sometimes one gets dominance over the others. And so occasionally there will be war with one of the southern nations, but oftentimes things are more peaceful and coherent there. Okay, I think overall this is pretty promising. It's fairly believable to me. I think that I didn't do anything too supernatural here. Probably the most supernatural thing is like fertile Rift Valley wasteland all around it. I think I hit the focus words okay. I think the one I missed the most here was acute, probably. But that I even kind of got. I like how acute is about concentrated, focused, and the choke points kind of do that. Maybe opinion is what I got weakest. Name is okay. I obviously just kind of bastardized the name Isle and then just kind of let the other letters flow, so to speak. But if I came up with that on the spot, I wouldn't be miserable. I mean, like, you know, in an actual consequential context, like if I'm hosting a game or something. So I'm going to give myself a B- for this one. It wasn't bad. Very serviceable even. And I could see myself possibly even using this civilization at some point in future in a game or something like that. Because they seem interesting. They seem engaging to me. And if it was engaging to me, I want to hear what you think. I'm sure many of you haven't seen my improvised world building videos before. So if so, tell me what you think about this format. It's not something that I intend on doing Friday videos on. It's not something that will replace my Age of Empires series, but I could see doing it once in a while on Mondays or Tuesdays. just to spice things up. And also because, as much as I love Age of Empires 2, improvised tabletop role-playing games are my first love. And they're the thing that I really have most of my game design experience rooted in and founded in, as well as most of my skills as a game designer kind of focused around. So if you'd like to see more of this sort of content or anything else besides, let me know. More importantly, I want to know what would you have done with these focus words, with these 5 right here. How would you make a realistic civilization in an Earth-like world based on those 5 words, with no magic or anything like that? I'd like to hear if you would have gone in a different direction for me. But beyond that, that's all we have for today. A short video in comparison to the Age of Empires ones. But I very much hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for your time. And as always, my name is Robbie Howell. And ciao for now.